Paramatma ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 This morning we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 56, starting of the description of the Shamantaka jewel. So we'll read the summary and then we'll go to the verses. This is more or less the whole chapter as we read yesterday. We read almost all the chapter because it's just one verse after the other describing the actual Leela without much commentary. So this chapter describes how Lord Krishna recovered the Shamantaka jewel to allay false accusations against him and marry the daughters of Jambavan and Satrajit. By enacting the pastime involving the Shamantaka jewel, the Lord demonstrated the futilities of material wealth. When Sukadeva Goswami mentioned that King Satrajit offended Lord Krishna on account of the Shamantaka jewel, King Parikshit became curious to hear the details of this incident. Thus, Sukadeva Goswami narrated the story. King Satrajit received the Shamantaka gem by the grace of his best well-wisher, the sun god Surya. After fastening the gem to a chain which he then hung around his neck, Satrajit travelled to Dwarka. The residents, thinking he was the sun god himself, went to Krishna and told him that Lord Surya had come to take his audience. But Krishna replied that the man who had come was not Surya but King Satrajit, who looked extremely effulgent because he was wearing the Shamantaka jewel. In Dwarka, Satrajit installed the precious stone on a special altar in his home. Every day the gem produced a large quantity of gold, and it had the additional power of assuring that wherever it was properly worshipped, no calamity could occur. On one occasion, Lord Sri Krishna requested Satrajit to give the gem to the king of the Yadus, Ugrasena. But Satrajit refused, obsessed as he was with greed. Shortly thereafter, Satrajit's brother, Prasena, left the city to hunt on horseback, wearing the Shamantaka jewel on his neck. On the road, a lion killed Prasena and took the jewel away to a mountain cave where the king of the bears, Jambavan, happened to be living. Jambavan killed the lion and gave the jewel to his son to play with. When King Satrajit's brother did not return, the king presumed that Sri Krishna had killed him for the Shamantaka jewel, for the Shamantaka gem. Lord Krishna heard about this rumor circulating among the general populace, and to clear his name, he went with some of the citizens to find Prasena. Following his path, they eventually found his body and that of his horse lying on the road. Further on, they saw the body of the lion Jambavan had killed. Lord Krishna told the citizens to remain outside the cave while he went in to investigate. The Lord entered Jambavan's cave and saw the Shamantaka jewel lying next to a child. But when Krishna tried to take the jewel, the child's nurse cried out in alarm, bringing Jambavan quickly to the scene. Jambavan considered Krishna an ordinary man and began fighting with him. For 28 days continuously, the two fought until finally Jambavan grew weak from the Lord's blows. Now, understanding that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Jambavan began to praise him. The Lord touched Jambavan with his lotus hand, dispelling his fear, and then explained everything about the jewel. With great devotion, Jambavan gladly presented the Shamantaka jewel to the Lord, together with his unmarried daughter, Jambavati. Meanwhile, Lord Krishna's companions, having waited 12 days for Krishna to come out of the cave, returned to Dwarka despondent, all of Krishna's friends and family members became extremely sorrowful, began regularly worshipping Goddess Durga to assure the Lord's safe return. Even as they performed this worship, Lord Krishna entered the city in the company of his new wife. He summoned Satyajit to the royal assembly and, after recounting to him the entire story of the Shamantaka jewel's recovery, gave the jewel back to him. Satyajit accepted the jewel, but with great shame and remorse, he went back to his home, and there he decided to offer Lord Krishna not only the jewel, but also his daughter, so as to atone for the offence he had committed against the Lord's lotus feet. Sri Krishna accepted the hand of Satyajit's daughter, Satyabhama, who was endowed with all divine qualities, but the jewel he refused, returning it to King Satyajit. So I'll just read, more or less what we've just read in the summary is recounted here in the verses one after another. So I'm just going to read through and occasionally comment as we go from one verse to the other. At 56 text 1, Sukadeva Goswami said, having offended Lord Krishna, Satyajit tried his best he could to atone by presenting him with his daughter and the Shamantaka jewel. Maharaj Parikshit inquired, O Brahmana, what did King Satyajit to offend Lord Krishna? Where did he get the Shamantaka jewel, and why did he give his daughter to the Supreme Lord? This is an interesting, in the summary, the description was given there that Maharaj Parikshit was interested to hear this story, not so much about the Shamantaka jewel, but because there was a connection to Lord Krishna. And so devotees, wherever there's a connection to Lord Krishna, just like we read in Mahabharata or Ramayana, some seemingly unrelated stories of the different kings, the different kingdoms, and sometimes Lord Rama is not directly mentioned or Lord Krishna is not directly mentioned, but there is connection there. So therefore, it is of interest to devotees. Devotees are not at all interested in just stories as such. People like to read stories. They buy many books and online or the physical or hardcover books to read many stories that are mostly fictional stories, or some sort of book that tells the history of the war or something like that. So people are interested in these things, but ultimately they become stale. You can't read the same thing over and over again. The history of the Philippines, how the Spaniards came, how the Americans came, how many times you can, I believe in school we have to learn all those things, but how many times you can hear it over and over again. You would become sick to death if they said, all right, today we're again reading the history of how the Spaniards came, and then next week we're doing the same, and next year we're doing the same thing. We would become very bored with that thing. Even the best thing in the material world, someone may like ice cream, but if I said to you, all right, you're eating ice cream for the next 3 weeks, every day, non-stop, you would hate it in the end. Because the material things have a finite period. They have a pleasure that is limited. But the spiritual topics, especially to very advanced devotees. Now, beginning devotees may tire even of these Krishna stories because they are still got some, perhaps some contamination from the modes of material nature from before. But the very elevated devotees, they can hear these stories again and again and again and again. So Maharaj Parikshit, he was a very advanced devotee. He was preparing to leave this world, and he was hearing night and day these instructions from Sukadeva Goswami. So he asked Sukadeva Goswami about this story because of the connection to Krishna. This place where this recital went on, I went there last year, the very famous place near Delhi, Sukratal. Sukratal is the place where Maharaj Parikshit heard from Sukadeva Goswami, all the sages that assemble there. It was by the Ganga. The Ganga, when you go now, the Ganga has moved a little bit over the years, the course of the flow of the river. It's about a kilometre away now. But at that time, it was right by this, but there's a banyan tree. There was an old banyan tree. They say there's the remnants of the original banyan tree where they sat under. And so many sages were there, and Sukadeva Goswami was speaking to Maharaj Parikshit. Sukrata, very beautiful spot in the ashram. And actually our devotees go there, especially from the Delhi They go there and they just study Srimad Bhagavatam and the association of other devotees. They look out different ashrams. I don't believe we have an ISKCON center there as such, but there are many other ashrams here. They just put them out and have Vaishnava Bhagavatam, recitation of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Parikshit Maharaj was attracted because of this factor. Also mentioned here, is how, and we'll read this, maybe I'll leave this till actually we get up to this point of reading it in the verses. So Parikshit asked the question, so I'll continue on in the text 3. Sukadeva Goswami said, Surya the sun god felt great affection for his devotee Satyajit, acting as his greatest friend, and the demigod gave him the jewel called Shamantaka as a token of his satisfaction. Wearing the jewel on his neck, Satyajit entered Dwarka. He shone as brightly as the sun itself, O king, and thus he went unrecognized because of the jewel's effulgence. A very unusual jewel given by the sun god, Shamantaka jewel. So there was so much light coming from him, they couldn't even see his form so directly. So they thought it must be the sun god because there's so much light. The sun god has come, and actually we'll read it. As the people looked at Satyajit from the distance, his brilliance blinded them. They presumed he was the sun god Surya, and went to tell Lord Krishna, who was at that time playing at dice. So the kings of the past, they would play these types of sport, the dice and all different types of things. This is because Krishna was playing the part of the Kshatriya. Balaram also was fond of playing the dice. As Vaishnavas, you don't do those things, but Krishna was playing a role, so the Kshatriyas would do different things. They would go hunting, they would play the dice, and so on and so forth. So Krishna was playing that role. He was playing a game of dice, rolling the dice. So that's what happened when the people came and said that the sun god was there. But then Krishna says, Narayana namaste. The resident of Dwarka said, the resident of Dwarka said, obeisance is unto you, O Narayan, O holder of the conch, disc and club, O light-eyed Damodar, O Govinda, O cherished descendant of Yadu. This is their prayer. First of all, they glorify him as Narayana, and Narayana holding in his Vishnu form. Narayana can be two-handed form. Narayan can be in Vishnu form, that the four arms, and in those forearms the conch, disc, club, lotus flower are held. And now in the Vaikuntha planets, we have so many forms of Narayana or Vishnu, and they're held in different ways. In the Vaikuntha planets, the conch is held in a different hand, perhaps according to one planet and to the other planet. But then they went on to address not only as Narayan, he's Narayan, but O Damodar, O Govinda, O cherished descendant of Yadu. So they knew that Krishna, of course, they knew it was Krishna, and they must have known about the pastime of Damodar Lila, and Govinda, the herder of the cows. They knew his history of living in Vrindavan. So in their prayer, when they came there to tell him, they first of all offered prayers, obeisances, said, obeisances unto you, and they offered prayers very nicely. Very nicely. They addressed him, they knew his Krishna, they knew his Govinda, they knew his Damodar. He has so many different, unlimited names practically. But they also addressed him as Narayan, knowing that from him actually all the Vishnu forms are expanded from Krishna originally. So this is very interesting. And then I'll go on, text 7. Lord Savita has come to see you, O Lord of the universe. He is blinding everyone's eyes with his intensely effulgent rays. The most exalted demigods in the three worlds are certainly anxious to seek you out, O Lord, now that you have hidden yourself amongst the Yadu dynasty. Thus, the unborn sun god has come to see you here. See, these statements of the Yadus here are so full of meaning, and they understand very clearly. So therefore, when we're offering prayers, we can offer prayers directly to Radha Madhava, ki jai, Panchatattva ki jai. It's best to offer prayers by very exalted personalities. Now we know that when Krishna descended, some of his eternal associates in the spiritual world descended with him. And also he gave a chance. He also told the demigods that you take birth in the royal families also, you can assist in my path. So some of them were directly what's called prashada, eternal associates in the spiritual world of the Krishna world, that accompanied him in different ways. And some others were demigods taking birth. Others were those on earth who were grown up in earth. So it was a big mix of different types of persons. It doesn't say exactly here which one. Generally, when we read about the obeisances offered and the prayers offered by many people at once, it generally means that one of them, the head of them, the leader of them, is making this presentation. And the Acharya, I've read many places, the Acharya is explained like that. Because generally is the leader, not that all of them are talking at one time, the leader is making this presentation. But what he says here, that the demigods, they are very exalted for a start, the devas in the heavenly planets, and they're anxious to see you. And they say that you have hidden yourself, although you are Narayan. First of all, they address him as Narayan, and then Govinda, Damodar Govinda, and that you are seemingly hidden, because although you're Narayan, you're Govinda, you're Damodar, you're seemingly hidden within the dynasty of the Yadus. You have hidden yourself among the Yadu dynasty. The sun god has come to see you here. The unborn sun god. The sun god has got a special position. The Surya Narayan is actually behind the demigod sun god, Vivishwan. It's called Surya Narayan. Surya Narayan is a form of Narayan who's there in the sun planet. Actually, it's from him that the sun planet gets the power. And the Vivishwan is ruling over it. He's got a fiery body to be able to live there, and many other residents there have got the bodies made of mainly of the fiery element, otherwise who can live there. So he is Vivishwan, but actually Surya Narayan, this is mentioned, that he lives there, and the whole power of the sun is there actually coming from Surya Narayan. The Surya Narayan is Lord Narayan. Vishnu is expanding in so many ways to sustain everything in the universe. And so they're saying the unborn sun god has come to see you. So very nicely, so I'll read on. Sukadeva Goswami continuing, hearing these innocent words, the lotus-eyed Lord smiled broadly and said, this is not the sun god Ravi, but rather Sakrajit, another name for the sun god Ravi, who is glowing because of his jewel, Ravi sun god. You know, in Egyptian, they have the sun god worship, and he's known as Ra. So I don't know if there's any connection there between Ra and Ravi. Ravi or Ra, I don't know, in the Egyptian, they are worshippers of the sun god, and they call him Ra. So I don't know what the connection is. There was one of our godbrothers who's passed away now, Sariputta, who was a great mathematician and scientist working with the Bhaktivedanta Institute. He was, just before he passed away, he was putting together the similarities between the ancient cultures of the earth, the Mayans, Nordic tribes, Germanic tribes, the African tribes, and all the similarities in their cultures, and worship of the Buddhas, worship of the ancestors, worship of devas, and what are all the similarities? And so unfortunately he passed away before he could finish that work. I don't know how far along he got. It's interesting that these cultures are, and he put forward that there's a very strong connection. Even when I travel around also Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, New Caledonia. Formerly, before they were colonized, the Christians came. Formerly, they were doing mainly Buddha worship, and they were doing Deva worship, ancestor worship. So they were following some sort of Vedic culture. Even some of the tribes people, like the Aboriginal people in Australia, they have some concept and worship of their ancestors, especially, and some higher beings, the Samoan and the Maori. You'll find all connections there to Vedic culture. And Prabhupada told us one time that The Vedic culture, the civilization was mainly living around the India area and close by. And in the far countries, further scattered countries, they were like different types of people living there. Mainly they were tribespeople living there. And sometimes the great kings would visit those places. They had the powers, mystic powers, to go and visit other countries. There's one story in Bali about Bali Maharaj. He used to go around, he had great power. Bali means of the ramai. He could jump from island to island. And he visited Indonesia. There's a mention in the Quran. He jumped all over. And so it's a very interesting story. So there's great connection here. And so here we go on. Ravi, just something to mention in passing. King Satyajit entered his opulent home, festively executing auspicious rituals. He had qualified brahmanas install the Shamataka jewel in his house's temple room. Now, in the summary, it's mentioned that he got this from the sun god, and as mentioned, and he fastened around. And now Krishna had asked him to give that gem to Ugrasena, who was the king of the Yadus. They had normally they had like one emperor or king who was above all the others. So Krishna was living as king, but Ugrasena was the elder, and he was the king of all the Yadus and so on. So generally, when one has a very valuable thing, it is their duty to present it to the king for the benefit of the kingdom. So Krishna was thinking in that way, for the benefit of the kingdom, that one person has come across a great opulence that's so powerful, that Krishna said, well, we should present it to the king so he can use it, so everyone can get the benefit. But as mentioned here, King Satyajit, he refused. He got it from the sun god. He was attached, and we're going to read now that it produced a lot of gold, and he became very possessive of it. And although actually his duty was to present it to the king, the best of all things should be presented to the king, but he became very attached. And so here also is mentioned, by enacting this pastime involving the Shamataka jewel, the Lord demonstrated the futility of material wealth. Now, King Satyajit refused to follow Krishna's instructions, and he had to get some reaction. Of course, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And even though Satyajit was somewhat devoted to him, it wasn't that he was an asura or something like that, and he was living in Dwarka. So anyone who living in Dwarka must be a very special person. He was living there. He wasn't asura, but it just goes to show that even great personalities can be affected by these things of the world, especially when you're talking a lot of money. So devotees have to be very careful. Quite often we've seen that devotees, they come sometimes very poverty-stricken to join the Hare Krishna movement. Over the period of time, due to the Lord's mercy, they become married, they have family, and by the Lord's mercy, they are able to amass a lot of wealth. And then they become, unfortunately, some of them become very possessive and attached to that thing, and very greedy, always wanting more and more, and become very arrogant and condescending. So one has to be careful. When there's one saying, it's easy to be humble when you've got nothing. You're forced to be humble. Well, you've got to be proud of. You've got nothing. Okay? So in poverty, so therefore, in one sense, poverty is best. And there's not, you don't have so many things to become puffed up about and greedy of. Of course, the great devotees, they can take so much. Like Prabhupada, he was offered so many things, but he used it in Krishna's service. So when Krishna sees that in the devotee, then he gives more and more. But for ordinary beginning devotees, we have to be careful with these things. And so Satyajit, he was not even beginning, he was actually quite elevated, but still he got affected. So Krishna sometimes enacts these pastimes to teach lessons for all those coming in the future. That even if great devotees like Satyajit, who ended up, we read in the summary that he gave his daughter to Satyabhama, was his daughter. Now, That's a very exalted, to be a father to Satyabhama, who is a representation of Bu, which is one of the energies of representation of Lakshmi, one of the three energies of Vishnu. She's come again. Of course, before that even, she's there in the walk of the spiritual in Krishna Loka, as Satyabhama. So someone who can have someone like that as a daughter is not an ordinary person. But even such a person can be affected, and we know Krishna is behind all things. He arranges many amazing pastimes just to show many things. It can be not just one thing, it can be many things simultaneously. But here is mentioned the futility of wealth. He got the jewel producing so many things, but in the end he was killed. I don't know if it's coming in this chapter or maybe in the next chapter. He was killed for that very jewel that he was so attached to. So people who become rich, I remember one time I was going through El Salvador, which had just come out of a big civil war. There was the government, there was the rebels, big fighting going on for decades. And, no one knew when it would end. So many people, so many soldiers killed, people killed, and so on and so forth. So no one knew. Somehow or other they arrived at a peaceful position after many decades. But then when I was driving, and they showed me, we were driving past the rich people's places, or the rich part of the San Salvador, which is the city. And I said, and out the front there were many men with machine guns outside the gate, machine guns. And on the wall was cameras and round barbed wire like that. And I said, what's all this? He said, actually many of these, they were the former rebels. And now there's no war. And so they had to get to work. So they're hired by the rich people to protect their estate, because the poor people, knowing the rich people are there, they're always stealing and jumping and taking so many things from them. So it becomes so bad that they're hiring the former rebels to protect them. So that's the problem, isn't it? You get a lot of money, but then everyone wants your money. That's the problem. Living in the material world, just like all these big famous people who have a lot of money, they've got security around them non-stop 24 hours. Even that's like the Bill Gates and Zuckerberg. They're surrounded by security 24/7 because they're so rich. People, they're envious. Why he has so much money? I want some of that money. So somehow or other, they're going to try to get it by the hook or crook. By the hook or crook. They can't get it by the sneaky means and maybe a legitimate way, by a company or financial or something, then by crook. By the hook or crook. So this is the, as mentioned here, this is the futility of material wealth. You can enjoy life, at the same time it can cause you a great suffering. And at any moment it can be taken away. There was one very rich person, billionaire in Australia, invested, made some bad, others around him made some bad decisions. After a short time, he became bankrupt. Lost so much money, just so much money in such a short time. He later built up again, but you can lose it just like that. So, going back to these verses, and then he's gone into, he went back to his house. Now, Satyajit was greedy, and he installed it on a special altar. He worshipped the jewel. He worshipped the jewel. Prabhupada said the demons worship anyone, or they like to worship themselves. The 16th chapter, one time he said that he knew someone from his time, from Prabhupada's time, in Calcutta, who made a lot of money from the war, the Second World War. So he started worshipping Hitler. He was very thankful to Hitler because due to the Second World War, he was, there's a lot of people make money off these wars, and they actually quite often they're behind the war because they make money off military equipment and all sorts of things like that. They influence the politics in different places, and they pushed forward the wars. And so behind everything, there's powerful men with vested interest in money. So, so Prabhupada mentioned that one man in Calcutta in his time was worshipping Hitler. So here we find Satyajit. He was worshipping Shamataka gem. It is Shamataka gem. And why? Now we'll read this. Each day, the gem would produce 8 barras of gold, my dear Prabhu, and the place in which it was kept, the properly worshipped, would be free of calamities such as famine or untimely death, and also of evils like snake bites, mental and physical disorders, and the presence of deceitful persons. Wow, what an effect. You can see why an ordinary person would be very possessive of this gem. It's not on now, in the purport, Sridhar Swami gives the following Shastic reference concerning the bara. It produced 8 barras of gold every day, somehow or other. Don't ask me how, but the jewel was producing. Now, Sridhar Swami quotes, 4 rice grains are called 1 gunja. 4 rice grains. So 1 gunja, 5 gunjas are 1 pana, 8 panas, 1 kasha, 4 kashas, 1 pala, and 100 palas, 1 tula. 20 tulas make up 1 bara. Since there were about 3,700 grains of rice in an ounce, the Shamataka was producing approximately 170 pounds of gold every day. That's a lot of gold. I don't know in kilos. I think in kilos it would be 170, would probably be about maybe 75 kilos. 75 kilos of the gold. I don't know who's familiar how much even is an ounce of gold now. That maybe a couple of $1,000. Just a little ounce.
5,000 per gram.
Huh?
Here is 5,000 per gram.
How many pesos?
Yeah, 5,000 pesos per gram.
Per gram. Per gram. Right. 5,000 pesos per gram. Whoa. 5,000 pesos per gram. Just per gram. Per gram. You can't even feel it per gram. 1 gram. Per gram. Hare Krishna. So this is, and that means, imagine 75 kilos. 75 or maybe nearly 80 kilos. Oh. Just like you go on the plane, maybe your suitcase is wearing, I notice that I go on planes, and then maybe your suitcase is 10 kilos. If it's 10 kilos, if it becomes 15 kilos, a bit heavy to lift, you can't hardly lift the 15 kilos. We're talking 75, and then full of the gold. Full of the gold. I remember when I was in Calcutta, some people tried to smuggle the gold from Thailand to India because the Thailand gold was more high quality. So they could sell it in India for more big price than Indian gold. Thailand gold, at least at that time, was 24 karat. And India was more 18, 20, it was less. So they would smuggle, but they got caught and they would bring it in a suitcase all packed and hidden. And then, but the customs was very suspicious, and they pulled them, and then a few of them were together differently, going in a different line. And then they searched, and there's some secret compartment, and each one of them had wrapped up the big bars of the gold. And they were taken, and they went to the jail. So people do anything to get the gold. They're worth so much money. And Prabhupada actually one time he said, why are people attracted to the gold? Someone disciple said, because they're worth a lot of money. The gold. Prabhupada said, yes, but also other things. And said, no one knew exactly. Because of the luster of the gold. The luster. The luster means that the color of the gold is shining. The shining gold is very attractive. Very, very attractive. There's some description of the ornaments of Krishna, the gold ornaments. They're compared to the molten gold. Now, when they get the gold, they melt it down, and they produce they produce bars. But when they melt it, they put it in a smelter, and it's like white hot, and it's glowing effulgent. So some of Krishna's jewels of the gold are the color of the molten gold. That's what ordinary gold, but molten gold. But the higher the quality of the gold, the higher the luster. People are attracted to that's gold. You can generally tell, although some things these days they imitate very closely. You have to scrape it on a stone. In India, in the old days, they used to have that black stone, and you took the gold, and then there's someone they can see the color, and someone who is trained could see if this was gold or not, or even what quality gold. But so anyway, just these are comments in passing. But imagine this was producing so much gold. But the other thing was also that free from calamities, such as famine. When the jewel was worshipped, famine would not be there, untimely death would not be there, snake bites, evils of snake bites, mental and physical disorders, and deceitful persons. So such was the effect, such powerful effect, they would be kept away. They would be kept away. So we'll read on. On one occasion, Lord Krishna requested Satyajit to give the jewel to the Yadu king, Ugrasena, but Satyajit was so greedy that he refused. He gave no thought to the seriousness of the offence he committed by denying the Lord's request. We've spoken about this. That to deny the Lord's request, that is an offence. So if Krishna is requesting something, then it, just like he gave so much information, and he spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna, and in the end he said, now I've spoken so much knowledge, now you decide what you want to do. And Arjuna replied, yes, I will follow your instructions. So he was very intelligent. But someone who doesn't follow, he make a special request from Krishna, that's, so he's going to get his reaction. So once Satyajit's brother Prasena, having hung the brilliant jewel about his neck, mounted a horse and went hunting in the forest. The comment here is the inauspicious result of Satyajit's refusal of Lord Krishna's request is about to manifest. So bad things can happen to you if you do something very inauspicious or bad, and it can happen not only to you, it can happen to your relatives. And you're here in this case, Prasena is indicated here that because of Satyajit's refusal of Lord Krishna's instruction, his brother was going to get some reaction. So we have to be very careful about doing bad things, because not only we will suffer, but other members of our family may suffer. So it's like this case in the material world, and someone comes, they've got some hate against you, maybe they'll want to take action against your family members also. This is quite common in the material world. So we'll read on, text 14. A lion killed Prasena and his horse and took the jewel, but when the lion entered a mountain cave, he was killed by Jambavan, who wanted the jewel. Within the cave, Jambavan let his young son have the Shamataka jewel as a toy to play with. Meanwhile, Satyajit, not seeing his brother return, became deeply troubled. He said, Krishna probably killed my brother, who went to the forest wearing the jewel on his neck. The general populace heard this accusation and began whispering it in one another's ears. So this is very, very bad. Very, very bad. First of all, he refused the instruction. Now he's making further accusation against Krishna. So I talk about Vaishnava Aparad. This is Bhagavan Aparad. Here's the original Vaishnava. Here's Bhagavan Aparad, and very silly, very less intelligent person, somehow or other. One becomes so infatuated, it just blinds you to the reality of the situation. When you focus in on one thing in a very infatuated way and overwhelming way, then all your good sense flies out the window. There's one story of Ravana. He manifests 10 hits. He had mystic power. Sometimes he would generally go with the one hit, but he could manifest 10 hits. And then when Ram came to take back Sita and all the Rakshasas were killed, only Ravana was left. Ram came there and he said, now you're the only one left. All your soldiers and everyone has been killed. Now just give back Sita. If you give back Sita, not only will I won't kill you, but I'll bring back all the soldiers back to life. You have to give me back Sita. So Ravana went back home. And Ram told him, you give me your answer tomorrow. You think tonight, give me your answer tomorrow. This story is told in one of the Qurans. And so Ravana went back. Now, he had one head. That one head was very attached to Sita. The other 10 heads, who were more knowledgeable, all were trying to convince the one head to give Sita back to Rama. With so many arguments from the Shastra, logic, this, that, the other thing, this description is there. So many arguments were given by all the other heads, very intelligent. But this one head was so full of lust for Sita and had to possess her. Had to possess her no matter what. Everyone was killed. He's the only one left. He knew that probably he would be next, but he was so blinded by this lust, he refused. He told the other heads, no. And when he came the next morning, Ram said, so what is your answer? Are you going to give Sita back? No. He was killed. And so it is a nice story to illustrate that when you become possessed with lust or greed, and many of these things, anger, everything flies out. Sometimes when you become very angry, so angry, you fly in a rage. You're a very controlled person, but something somehow sparked you. Even some friends are talking, something bad happens between them, and the other one becomes so angry they kill their friend who was maybe their childhood friend growing up for many years. They killed them. You read so many stories like that. Maybe they were, all the time we're reading about it. Two friends were drinking together, a lot of alcohol in the home. They both became drunk, argument came up, and they were fighting, and then one friend killed the other friend. So many times you read that, due to the effect of the intoxication. So anger can cause that, greed can cause that, lust, therefore these are considered the enemies of the conditions. So lust, greed and anger, every sane man should give them up, for they lead to the degradation of the individual soul. This Krishna tells us in Bhagavad Gita. Lust, greed and anger have to be given up. But very difficult. One needs to have the Krishna consciousness to be able to overcome these things. And strong Krishna consciousness. But even then, one has to be careful, and one should always stay in the association, strong association of devotees, and take the advice of others. And Satyajit didn't talk to anyone. When Krishna asked him, give to Ugrasena, he just himself decided, this was very foolish, to keep it. And then, so this is bad, and now his brother's killed. And then, to top it off, to make things worse, now he's spreading false rumor. Krishna probably killed my brother. He wanted that jewel. My brother is killed. He hasn't come back. Krishna probably did it. The general population. And then fish, talking, criticizing, whispering to others. This is how it all starts. And it gets out everywhere. So when Krishna heard this rumor, he wanted to remove the stain on his reputation. So he took some of Dwarka citizens with him and set out to retrace Prasena's path. Now this is very interesting. Krishna is so intelligent. Now, I was talking the other day, I can't remember in the night time or in the morning, that the reputation for a king is very important. Reputation. And dishonor is worse than death. For a Kshatriya, better to die than to be dishonored. Because they have to, also they've got pride, so it hurts themselves individually. But on top of that, they have to have good reputation so they can govern. They can govern. To govern, you need the respect of the people. There's Prabhupada one time said that a leader can only lead when the followers agree to follow him. If the followers don't agree to follow him, then he can't lead. So if you've got good reputation, people respect you. Then people are more inclined. To follow you. So it goes to the governance of the king. The governance. So kings are very concerned about their reputation. Their reputation. We know one story in Ramlila when Lord Ram came back to Ayodhya with Sita. They were living there, but at one time there was that washerman who was criticizing. What was his name? Krodana, the washerman, and his wife had gone to stay with some family friends, and he went and he didn't know. And she got back home and started, where have you been? He started thinking very suspiciously. You've gone to stay at another man's house. I want you have to go out from here. I won't accept you any longer as my wife. He threw her out of the house. And he actually said, I'm not like that Lord Ram. He actually said like that. I am not like that Lord Ram who accepted Sita back after she was staying at the house of Ravana. Of course, we know that Ravana didn't touch her, nor the false Sita. But this man was so foolish that he dared to criticize Lord. I'm not like Lord Ram, as if he's better than Lord Ram. I am not, but in a fit of rage and anger and all these things, he can say very bad things. And so that's what he said, I'm not like that Lord Ram. So this, and then others got to know of that, and then because the wife was sent out, and she, I don't know how it spread, but it spread everywhere. So Lord Ram heard about it, and he considered, what is my reputation? So he took the very extreme step of asking Sita that, I have been criticized as the king, and because people are saying, now I know you're faultless, I know you're completely pure, and you are untouched, but for the sake of ruling the kingdom, maybe you should go out and live with the ashram of Valmiki. So you went to live with the ashram of Valmiki. So these were very shocking things. The citizens who are very loyal to Lord Ram, they were very shocked by it. But Lord Ram was so staunch in his position as king. Mayada Purushottama, the greatest of, he has no fault. He portrayed the role of the king so exactly and so strictly that he even sent his wife. And at the time she was pregnant. And so she had the children, Ram and Kusha, at the ashram of Valmiki. Can you imagine sending your wife when she's pregnant? But Lord Ram was so staunch, and he was so much thinking, these rumors are going to ruin my ability, and to set the example for future kings. So they're very strict. It is very uncommon. So Lord Krishna took it very seriously. And he wanted to remove the stain from his reputation. And very interestingly, he took some of Dwarka's citizens with him. Now, he could have gone by himself. Of course, he knew everything already. But he could have gone by himself to get to the bottom of the matter and report back to everyone. But he knew that if he just went by himself and reported back, actually Prasenna was killed by a lion, I found him. But then some people would say, he's just saying that. He's just saying that. He actually killed him. So then just because Krishna is so intelligent, he took the citizens with him, and as they were going, they all together discovered the body of Prasenna and the horse. And then they went on together. And Krishna is so intelligent, he understands everything. They went on together till they found the cave with a lion, and the lion was killed. So then Krishna said that in the cave, it was in the beginning of the cave, the entrance, the cave must have had some many other parts. And so Krishna decided this is very dangerous, there may be other lions. So you all wait here, I'll go inside by myself. So we'll read this. In the forest they found Prasenna and his horse both killed by the lion. Further on they found the lion dead. On the mountainside they found the lion slain by Jambavan. The Lord stationed his subjects outside the terrifying pitch dark cave of the king of the bears. Pitch dark, you want to go in there, see what's in there, what killed the lion. You're going to see a dead lion and there's a cave right nearby. Who's going to go in there? Something killed the lion. Because Krishna knew everything. And then he entered alone. Verse 20. There Lord Krishna saw the most precious of jewels had been made into a child's plaything. Determined to take it away, he approached the child. The child's nurse cried out in fear upon seeing that extraordinary person standing before them. Jambavan, strongest of the strong, heard her cries and angrily ran toward the Lord. Now Jambavan, a very special person, he was always also there in Ram Lila. He's what's called a Chiranjeev. He can live as long as he likes. There are some persons who live on earth, they are called Chiranjeevs. Chiran means they can live practically at home. So Jambavan was from the former age of Lord Ram, millions of years before. But he was still living, and he was living now in the time of Krishna. But Jambavan, he is the king of the bears, Jambavan. He was the assistant to Bali and Sugriva. Sugriva, he became the right hand of Sugriva in Ramlila. So he came there, and he was very angry. He didn't immediately recognize Krishna, because he was the body of Lord Ram. And he began angrily fighting with the Supreme Lord, his master. In the purport, more or less, they Prakriti Purusha, the mundane person. In other words, the Lord is actually Purushottama, the ultimate transcendental person. We won't read that because it just describes how we thought that he was just an ordinary man. The two fought furiously in single combat, each determined to win, contending against each other with various weapons, and then with stones, tree trunks, and finally their bare arms. They struggled like two hawks, battling over a piece of flesh. The fight went on without rest for 28 days. The two opponents striking each other with their fists, which felt like the cracking blows of lightning. And here it's mentioned in the purport that they continued day and night, fighting in the day and the night. You can fight even for 20 minutes, 10 minutes. The boxers come out, they box, got a few rounds and then they're finished. Imagine if you had to fight all day, all night. But here they fought for 28 days without rest. His bulging muscles pummeled by the blows of Lord Krishna's fists. Of course, Krishna could have killed Jambavan if he wanted to, but he wanted to have some fighting. His strength faltering and his limbs perspiring, Jambavan, greatly astonished, finally spoke to the Lord. No one could defeat Jambavan, even from Ram's strength. He was not killed in the battle with the Rakshasas and Ravan. He was so strong, Jambavan. Jambavan said, I now know that you are the life, air, and the sensory, mental, and bodily strength of all living beings. You are Lord Vishnu, the original person, the supreme, all-powerful controller. You are the ultimate creator of all creators of the universe and of everything created. You are the underlying substance. You are the subduer of all subduers, the supreme Lord and super soul, supreme soul of all souls. All right, we'll just read quickly through because more or less is just telling him that. And he's offering his prayers. Where are we? You are he who impelled the ocean to give away when the ocean to give way when his sidelong glances, slightly manifesting his anger, disturbed the crocodile. So here he's referring to Lord Ram when he was angry with the ocean and Timagila fish within the watery depths. He burnt down the city of Lanka. So he's recognizing that Krishna must be Lord Ram again. And so he's going on. Then Lord Krishna addressed the king of the bears who had understood the truth. The lotus-eyed personality of God, the son of Devaki, touched Jambavan with his hand, which bestows all blessings, and spoke to his body with sublime compassion. His great voice, deeply resounding like a cloud. Now it's mentioned that the Jambavan was pummeled just by the touch of Krishna's hand, that he felt rejuvenated. He didn't feel tired at all. It is for this jewel, O Lord of the Bears, that we have come to your cave. I intend to use the jewel to disprove the false accusations against me. Thus addressed, Jambavan happily honoured Lord Krishna by offering his maiden daughter Jambavati together with the jewel. After Lord Suri had entered the cave, the people of Dwarka who had accompanied him had waited 12 days without seeing him come out. Again, finally they had given up and returned to their city in great sorrow. When Devaki, Rukmini Devi, Vasudeva and the Lord's other relatives and friends heard that he had not come out of the cave, they all lamented, cursing Satyajit, the soulful residents of Dwarka, approached the Durga deity named Chandrabhaga and prayed to her for Krishna's return. When this, of course, Krishna didn't need to get the blessings of Chandrabhaga, but nevertheless they thought anything can help. When the citizens had finished worshipping the demigoddess, she spoke to them. Oh, the demigoddess spoke to them in response. It was interesting. Promising to grant their request. Just then Lord Krishna said, she must have known. She divined that Lord Krishna was coming in. They said, yes, I'll agree. Actually, probably had nothing to do with it. But she spoke. They give the blessing. Just then Lord Krishna, who had achieved his purpose, appeared before them in the company of his new wife, filling them with joy. Seeing Lord Rishikesh return as if from death, accompanied by his new wife, wearing the Shamtaka jewel on his neck, all the people were roused to jubilation. Jambavan had placed the jewel on Lord's neck when he presented his daughter in marriage. Lord Krishna summoned Satyajit to the royal assembly. There, in the presence of King Ugrasena, Krishna announced the recovery of the jewel and then formally presented it to Satyajit. So Krishna made sure that everyone knew, and he made the announcement very publicly, so everyone knew, lay all the bad rumors against him, and to explain the whole story. Hanging his head in great shame, Satyajit had no other option but to accept. Satyajit took the gem and returned home, all the while feeling remorse for his sinful behaviour, pondering over his grievous offence and worried about the possibility of conflict with the Lord's mighty devotees. King Satyajit thought, how can I cleanse myself of my contamination, and how may Lord Achyuta become satisfied with me? What can I do to regain my good fortune and avoid being cursed by the populace for being so short-sighted, miserly, foolish and avaricious? I shall give my daughter, the jewel of all women, to the Lord, together with the Shamataka jewel. That indeed is the only proper way to pacify him. So Satyajit was worried about himself. But now he was proven wrong, and he didn't give the jewel, and he caused this bad rumour saying that Krishna had killed his brother. So he thought that there might be some retaliation, maybe not from Krishna, but from others who were, very angry with Satyajit. So now he's thinking how to counteract. better not to commit these types of offences because then you're worried about how to counteract them. So we'll just finish off here. Having thus intelligently made up his mind, in Buddha, this word Buddha, so he was very intelligent. King Satyajit personally arranged to present Lord Krishna with his fair daughter, the Shamataka jewel. Lord married Satyabhama in proper religious fashion, possessed of excellent behaviour along with beauty, broad-mindedness, all other good qualities she had been sought by many men. Srila Swami explained that men such as Kridabhama had sought the hand of Satyabhama. So she was so wonderful that others had desired her. Supreme Personality of God had told Satyajit, we do not care to take this jewel back. O King, you are the sun god's devotee, so let it stay in your possession. Thus we will also enjoy its benefits. Purport. Satyajit should have worshipped Lord Krishna, the Supreme God. Thus there is certainly a touch of irony in Lord Krishna saying, after all, you are a devotee of the sun god. Furthermore, Krishna had already acquired Satyajit's greatest treasure, the pure and beautiful Satyabhama. Thus end the purports of the humble servants of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada in the 10th canto, 56th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavatam entitled Shamataka Jewel. So tomorrow we'll read about Satyajit murdered and the jewel returned. Oh, drama, drama, drama. All right. Thank you very much for attending the Srimad Bhagavatam class. Hare Krishna. Does anyone have any questions or comments in regard to today? So much Leela there. Yes.
Thank you very much for the lecture. So my question is that why is it that even though Jambavan is a great devotee,
Jambavan?
Yes, but they could not recognize Krishna. He has to fight with him for 28 days.
Yeah. Again, the acharyas don't give elaboration on that, but he became angry that who is there to come in here in my presence practically. Of course he was protecting, who knows who he was, and of course his son was there, the nurse was there, she cried out. So it was a question of protection, and he flew into anger, and he just started fighting. And this is also has to do with the Yogamaya, potency of the Lord. That they're covering great devotees. That Lord's Yogamaya potency is covering these great devotees and enabling them to feel that they want to protect and become angry. Jambavan had previously in Ramai become so angry. He jumped over to, before the battle started, he jumped over and made himself very small and ran over the body of Ravana and spat in his face. And Lord Ram said, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Ram is very dangerous. So people can do very immature things. So Yogamaya was expanded by the Lord. And then at some point when Jambavan was completely exhausted and pummeled, Lord used his Yogamaya in another way to give him realization actually who he was. So this is all extended to enable the Lord to have the various pastimes. So covered by Yogamaya, he became angry, felt protected, and felt who is this person, and then so it was passed on. Any other question? Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shri Radhamana Bhagavan ki jai. Go Premanande, Hari Hari Bo.
Swami Maharaj ki
Jai.